Are you staring at your kitchen wondering, do I need to throw all of this out and start over? Are my pans safe? Is my toaster safe? Is this going to be okay? The truth is, you are not alone. This is such a common question when somebody starts their gluten-free diet to wonder, do I need to start all over? Is my kitchen even safe anymore? Yes, your kitchen may still be safe, and there are probably a few things that you need to buy new, but we're going to break it down all in this video. There are 3 common questions that we're going to answer today. Number 1, is cross-contamination a big deal? And what is it? Is it safe to share a kitchen with somebody who is not gluten-free? And do you need separate cookware and utensils if you are sharing a kitchen with somebody who's not gluten-free? Let's start by talking about something that trips up so many people when they first start their gluten-free diet: cross-contamination. Comment contaminate if you've heard of cross-contamination before and you're still a little bit confused by the whole thing. Here's the reality. When you go gluten-free, you can be doing all of the things right. But if you are in a shared space with somebody who is still preparing gluten-filled foods, there is a probability of cross-contamination, and it can be something that can still continue to cause symptoms. Yes, for some people, the littlest crumb of gluten is going to cause symptoms still. Cross-contamination is when a gluten-free food comes into contact with gluten, either directly or through shared surfaces, utensils, or ingredients. Even tiny traces of gluten, like little crumbs or residue left on a cutting board, can cause a reaction for somebody who is severely gluten intolerant or who has celiac disease. That is not a safe environment for them. And yes, it really does only take a tiny bit to cause a really big reaction for some people. They're not blowing it out of proportion. Here are a few real-life examples of how cross-contamination might be happening in a gluten-free kitchen that is shared with somebody who is still eating gluten. Gluten-free toast that's made in the same toaster. It's full of crumbs from the bread that was toasted that's filled with gluten. Toasters tend to circulate air, and when that air circulates, it's moving the crumbs around, which means it's moving the residue of gluten around. This is why when a product is trying to become a certified gluten-free product, their entire factory has to be a gluten-free factory. They cannot share a factory with somebody else who is creating a gluten-filled food, because gluten residue gets into the air, gluten crumbs can get into the air, and when there are fans and vents and things like that that are circulating air around, it's circulating gluten, making it unsafe for them to produce a gluten-free product. The same thing with the toaster. It's a mini factory. Another example is when somebody dips their knife in the peanut butter jar and spreads it on a gluten toast and then dips it back in the peanut butter jar to get some more peanut butter. The next time you go to use that jar of peanut butter, it is no longer safe because it has likely been cross-contaminated with crumbs of gluten. Shared cutting boards and pasta strainers are a huge source of gluten cross-contamination. Cutting boards, especially wooden ones, which we'll talk about in a little bit, are not a safe thing to share. If you are putting gluten on that cutting board, it is no longer safe to be a gluten-free cutting board. These little things seem tiny, but they add up to be such a big deal for someone who has celiac disease, is gluten sensitive, or severely gluten intolerant. Give this video a like if you've heard that you have to have a completely separate space to be safely gluten-free in a kitchen that might have previously been shared. From utensils to toasters, cookware, there's a possibility that gluten is everywhere. So here's the reality. There are some things in a kitchen, like the toaster, like the cutting board, that you need to have that are dedicated gluten-free. But there are other things that you can share completely safe as long as you are cleaning them in between uses. Toasters, air fryers, anything that circulates air around when it cooks needs to be dedicated gluten-free. So if you are using an air fryer that you have previously used to make gluten-filled foods, you need to set that aside, put a label on it and say gluten, and get another air fryer. I know that seems expensive, it might seem exhaustive, but it is going to prevent you from having continued symptoms of eating gluten. It might not seem like a big deal, but it really, really is. Wooden utensils are another thing that you really need to have a gluten and a gluten-free section of. They need to be stored separately and they need to be treated completely separately within your kitchen. Wood is one of those things that absorbs things as you use it. So think about when you are stirring pancake batter with a wooden spoon. The spoon starts to turn colors because some of that pancake batter is starting to get into the wood. You can clean it as much as you want, but there's still a possibility that in the little slivers within the wooden spoons or wooden utensils that there is gluten inside of it. So it is no longer safe for you to use these previously gluten-used wooden spoons. Buy yourself a separate set, keep it separate in the kitchen so there is no chance of them accidentally getting mixed up and cross-contaminated. Cutting boards, as I've mentioned, are another thing. Mostly wood cutting boards. Similar to the wooden utensils, they are not completely safe. Gluten can seep in, crumbs can get in, and it could leave some residue behind, leaving it very unsafe for you to use that cutting board going forward. You can have 2 cutting boards. Label them one gluten, one gluten-free. Keep them stored separately so there's no chance of them getting mixed up. The reality is you can share a space and still maintain a gluten-free kitchen. You can have somebody in there who is eating gluten day in and day out. We do it in our house all of the time. But there is those things that you need to pay attention to, those things that you cannot share that we just talked about. Some things you can share, though, are metal pans, glass bowls, things like that, things that can be cleaned easily and that don't absorb the food that you put in them when you are cooking. That means you can still share pots and pans. You can still share glasses and cups from the cupboards. You could technically still share utensils like forks and spoons and knives as long as they are metal or glass, something along those lines. Now, if you have plastic silverware, I would not trust that as something that is safe to share between gluten and gluten-free. Similar to wood, plastic sometimes absorbs the food that we are putting in it. So even though you are cleaning it and deep cleaning it, it is not necessarily going to come clean. Plus, these days, we want to reduce some of the plastic we're using anyways. So focusing on the glass containers, metal bowls, things like that are going to be safer all around for your kitchen environment, regardless of whether gluten is involved or not. When you're creating your gluten-free kitchen, some things you can do to ensure things stay safe if you are sharing a kitchen is using squeeze bottles instead of shared jars for things. That peanut butter I mentioned before, when you're dipping your knife into that peanut butter, that's going to cause problems. Now, peanut butter doesn't really come in a squeeze jar, but things like jelly, things like mayo, mustard, ketchup, all of that in squeeze jars ensures that it's safe when you are using gluten and gluten-free. You're not double dipping spoons and forks and stuff inside of those. Label the items that are for the gluten-free piece of the kitchen. This ensures that anybody who is living in the house knows that only gluten-free foods can be prepared on those items. If they have a problem with it, store them in a completely separate place where there is no chance that they're going to grab it on a whim, pull it aside and use it and cause an incident of gluten. Anytime you're going in to prepare food, wipe the counters clean. Try to wash them down, use whatever you use to clean your counters, clean the entire surface. Make sure to just double wash all your utensils. So if you're going to cut up some fruits, just run your knife through soap and water real quick before you do. That ensures that no one accidentally used that knife and put it back while touching gluten, and it is safe for you to use, and no crumbs will be brought from behind. At the end of the day, it's all about having communication with the people you are sharing a kitchen with, especially if they are going to continue to eat gluten. Be open and honest about your gluten-free diet. Tell them why this is so important to you. Have the hard conversations so they understand that it is no longer safe for you to eat in a kitchen where gluten is being produced 100% of the time. You need to have your own safe space, or you need to have an area that is gluten-free dedicated, or you at least need to have a drawer that is all gluten-free dedicated utensils, air fryers, toasters, cutting boards, etc. It really is about being mindful and creating new habits that prevent gluten from sneaking in to different places. Inside my ebook, Going Gluten-Free Getting Started, I walk you step by step through setting up your gluten-free diet, including your gluten-free kitchen and understanding cross-contamination in more depth. You can grab it at the link below in the description. Watch the next video though, because we are going to talk about why most gluten-free diets fail within the first few weeks.